I was saying, just interacting on LinkedIn is a little bit different than person.
It
Right.
is. It's great to see your face. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to the bridge. Today is our 92nd episode, and we're welcoming Shelly. Is it
Rex
Rextrot?
wrote. So I
Rex.
tell people it's like a T-Rex dinosaur wrote a book. So Rex
Oh,
wrote, and
oh, Rex
makes
Road.
it a little bit
That
easier.
really helps me. It does. So
Yeah.
anyway, welcome, Shelly. Let's see if I can't play our. I think it might be called bumper music. Oh, I lost it. Hang on. Okay, here we go.
Slow down, you move too fast. Gotta make the morning last. Kicking down the cobblestones. Looking for fun and feeling groovy. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-dum, feeling groovy.
Okay, well, welcome everybody again. And we've got Shelly on with us this morning. She's got a great story, and actually, she's just written a book that we want to hear a little bit more about too, which is exciting. And Sandy, how about a quote?
Okay, our quote for this morning is, if you cannot do great things, do small things in a great way.
Ooh,
Oh, I love that.
It's kind of the little step by little step that makes it into something bigger, right?
yeah, the greatness is there no matter what, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. So wonderful. Shelly, I know from LinkedIn that you have an awesome story. So why don't you just kind of introduce yourself and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, that sounds great. So my name is Shelly Rextrot. I tell people that to say my last name, it's like a T-Rex dinosaur wrote a book. It's a little bit difficult, but Rex wrote. You can usually remember it from that. And I recently left a corporate job to launch a book that I've written. And I also have been building things around it. So I currently run an innovation studio that uses design thinking to elevate leadership, creativity, and human flourishing, building new models for how people and organizations do meaningful work. It's currently in an intentional build phase. So we have revenue coming in from book sales and speaking, advisory work, apps, and creative offerings as we're building out the platform.
Awesome. So you are a leader and
Yeah.
you're also an entrepreneur.
Exactly. Yes. And been very involved in the startup community. My mom was actually an entrepreneur. So growing up, we were right in the thick of things with the entrepreneur and startups, and you see what it takes to build a business.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm going to go off on that tangent just for a second. We have a little series called The Spirit of Entrepreneurship. And
Oh,
since you grew up in a home where
mhm.
you experienced it, can you give me one or two traits that you think are indicative of entrepreneurs or else qualities that I need if I'm thinking of branching out?
Absolutely. Most people think of you needing the creative ideas, but one of the things that you definitely need is something that gives you such a strong why that it gives you the tenacity and grit to get through the hard things. Because sometimes if you try to turn what you love into a business, then when things get hard, all of a sudden the thing that you loved isn't so lovely.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say that. And then the courage, you have to overcome all those fears of starting out on your own and
Right.
getting past those initial, difficulties.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the ability to, I don't know if you close your eyes and jump off the cliff, but in
Yes.
some way you would have to jump off the cliff and take that action. And
Yes.
that's oftentimes, especially with people that are deep into their curriculum and or,
Yeah.
their goals, it's a different quality than just a leadership quality.
Yes. It's not for the faint of heart.
Oh, when did you know that you had a book to write?
Oh my goodness. So it was kind of a crazy situation. So after my mom's company, I ended up in corporate life. So after I graduated from college and did a few things and came back, I had been in corporate life for, 28 years. So a very long time. and just left in August. So this has been pretty recent.
New, yeah.
But about a year prior to that, I had just been working crazy hours, like a lot of companies. When COVID hit, everything started moving to the cloud. But then on top of that, we had been carved out. We had purchased, 4 or 5 companies. We had all these mergers and acquisitions. I was leading technology. And so I was very deep in all the integrations and working crazy hours. And I really, when I first started in that role and all this happened, I thought, oh, give me a couple of years, I'll work really hard and then I'll kind of hit this level set, wishful thinking, of course. And, about the time I catch my breath, we'd acquire another company. So I ended up working, weekdays and weekends, 12 to 14 hours. It was just kind of crazy. And I was having trouble stopping and taking a breath. So one weekend, I was really feeling convicted about the fact that I wasn't taking a Sabbath and wasn't taking the rest. And so that morning I got up and I just said, God, I just give this day to you. I don't know what you want me to do with it, but it is just yours. Whatever you want me to do, I will do it today. And then I was scrolling some social media and came across a post and God whispered, write a book. And I'm like thinking,
Oh,
more than a day. What did I sign up for?
oh Lord.
Exactly.
Your answer. Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, good for you. So I'm hearing from all the work that you put in over the 28 years in your corporate life that you were probably a classic overfunctioner.
Yes, very much.
And
So
so
very difficult to set boundaries.
Well, what happens is you let that define you because you feel like that's who you are. So realizing that there's a difference between the do and the who. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's easy to get caught up in that.
Yeah, it so is.
Yeah. And it seems, I mean, you follow LinkedIn too, but it seems to me that the major story nowadays, especially with women, is to get out off of that corporate ladder and they have stuff in them and they're creating. Tell me a little bit about, because on your website it says the word design.
Yes.
Tell me more about you and designing.
Yeah, it's so amazing because my mom growing up, whenever she started her business, it originally started, she and a friend. So I guess I'll take one step back and just kind of emphasize the fact that, entrepreneurs tend to start from either creativity and inspiration or desperation.
Right.
And
A little of both.
yes, a little bit of both. And so my mom had some inspiration, but my dad had died, but she had a friend that was pretty desperate for needing something that would pull her out of an abusive situation. And so as she started, they first thought that they were going to do music and writing music. So they looked at that a little bit, but then they went towards art. So they started doing calligraphy and watercolor art. But quickly decided that there was a lot of businesses out there that were doing calligraphy art. So they began to do matted frames and added fabric onto the frames. And then it started growing into other things. But my mom had kind of that artistic bent, music and art, but also science. So she had graduated in biology, but she had taken art classes and taught painting. And so we grew up kind of in that environment. And in fact, my younger sister went to Savannah School of Art and Design and graduated with illustration. So very artistic, niches within our family, but then the science as well. So a little bit of the logic and the creativity. So as I grew up, my mom did a lot of the behind the scenes design work of products and different things. My granddad at one point, he was a dentist, but he had thought about going into fashion because he had a real knack for fashion and furniture and did all sorts of fun, creative things. So I grew up in that kind of, that melting pot of creativity and design. And in fact, I did a little bit of fashion, I say it, I kind of piddled around with fashion when I was growing up because I enjoyed it. My grandmother taught me how to sew and my mom's business had sewing machines. So I kind of just had that, naturally in my background. And it was kind of in the interior design space. It was bed and bath products. So as I went to college, I kind of was like, wide world. So, I looked at all kinds of majors. At one point I was even thinking about being a medieval studies major. My mom, I think, was like, oh my gosh, what is she thinking? But the fine arts. So I just got to explore all kinds of different things. And as I graduated, I had been involved in my mom's business a little bit on the accounting side. So I've been helping, over summers and holidays, with some of the accounting and cost accounting and different things. So after graduating from college, I thought about going towards the medical side, and I thought about going towards the legal side, things that would be big dreams to change the world. But just through the nature of things, I ended up helping my mom's business with an accounting package, like IT technology integration and some different things in technology. So I kind of started thinking, well, maybe I could go the accounting route, or maybe I could go the technology route. And I came across a company that did financial accounting, specialized tax accounting, and in the IT space. Well, because of a little bit of artistic nature, I started headed towards software design, because I still got a little bit of that creativity as you design the user interfaces as well as the databases. And then over time, I kind of I'm kind of both logic brain and creative brain.
Right.
I started bending way towards the logical brain. And so it was kind of interesting, a couple of years ago, as God started waking up that creativity and that design and showing me that the way that I approached everything, even the things that were logical, was from a design thinking, a design mindset. So that's where the design came from. Most people think they want to think narrowly, like graphic design or interior design or fashion. But for me, design colors everything that I do.
That's wonderful. That it sounds to me that you not only you were exposed to a holistic view of things.
Yes.
It reminds me in education,
Yes.
where some people like to go in narrowly, but the best teachers teach holistically, and all of it's connected.
Yes.
There's so much science.
Yes. In fact, I love, the whole idea of they've kind of changed STEM to STEAM, and they've added the arts. And it's amazing when you look at, because I graduated with psychology degree, so I was thinking towards the neurology, but I love thinking about how people's brains work and everything. And the music and the arts really develop parts of your brain that are so important for business. So you don't realize that even things like writing in cursive, it builds up certain parts of your brain that otherwise would be, just.
Yeah. I was a third grade teacher for a few years, and cursive writing.
Yes.
Once the kids could stop saying then once they started cursive, it all started flowing together.
Yes.
And even to the point that I would send the boys that were having trouble with their handwriting, I'd send them outside to dribble a basketball. And that helped them come in, and, it's just fascinating. And in music, I love the fact that people who read music and don't like to play by ear, they are left brainers. And our right brainers are the ones that play by ear but reject the music. The good musicians do both, but they are different sides of the brain. Totally.
Yeah, it makes me think, because my younger sister, the one that went to art school, was very creative, and when she would play piano, so my mom had us all kind of go through piano, and I'm the only one that really stuck it out. My other two sisters were kind of like, okay, I've had enough. But my younger sister would make up her own music, and she'd be like, I think it sounds better that way. Her poor music teacher was like, but you've really got to play it like it's written.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really interesting. But as you analyze your musicians, they have different ways, and some of the best ones go by the music, and some of the best ones don't want to have a thing to do with it.
Yes, talent on both sides, right? Shelly, I actually found your book on Amazon today.
Oh, fabulous.
So I have it on my list that I'm going to get, because it sounds very intriguing. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, definitely. So originally, when God gave me the prompting to write the book, I had been through a really intense health scare because I had tumors that were it turned out the size of a 12-pound brisket, like some of the
Oh,
biggest
you're
tumors you've
kidding.
ever seen.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
And I had ended up, that had caused a hernia that was huge and it got strangled. So it forced me to have surgery. So I had luckily, it wasn't an emergency surgery because I probably would not have survived that. But thankfully, my intestines wasn't involved, but it was still critical for me to get it done quickly. So they sent me to one of the best oncology surgeons that was familiar with not quite that giant tumors, but large tumors and complicated surgeries. And when he saw it, the one thing that he said to me that really didn't sink in fully until later was that the tumors were sitting in front of the blood supply. So he said, normally we would be lining up, blood transfusions, blood in case that you lost blood. But he said, in your case, if we get in there and can't get the tumors out fast enough, that wouldn't save you. So it was basically one of those times where you just really had to open up your hands and just say, God, there's nothing I can do, and it's such a short amount of time, you can't check off your bucket list, my sisters are kind of spread out all over the country. So no chance of seeing them in person, just had to call and say, please pray. And I love you so much. And just pray for a miracle. So with that as the background, when I originally thought I was going to write the book, I was like, okay, I'll call it 2 weeks to live, But then as I got in and they started helping me with the outline and the work, I have this amazing publishing company called Streamline, and they built it out to share your story, but they really come alongside you and help you as you write these books. They said, okay, so tell me what happened in those 2 weeks. And I was like,
Oh my
nothing.
goodness.
What can happen in 2 weeks, right? And so as it evolved, I thought, oh, it'll be a business book. I'll talk about, the corporate work that I was doing when all of this happened. But it just naturally started evolving into a life story. And so that's, thinking about the 2 weeks, it made me think of being in a cocoon, and waiting to break through and break out. But, I ended up, a lot of times
Oh, we go. Get her back on here.
Yes, we lost her.
There we are. We lost. Oh, hang on. That's me. There you are.
Oh, good. Minor hiccups.
You and Sandy switch places, right?
Oh, good. I like it.
Good.
Musical chairs.
Musical chairs, yeah.
So I was trying to think. So as I was thinking about being in the cocoon, the 2 weeks, I started thinking about all the different things that I've been through in my life and the life cycle of a butterfly. And I originally hadn't thought about talking about some of the abuse that happened after my dad died. My mom remarried somebody who was very abusive. And normally I just kind of skipped over that part. I was just like, oh, that happened. She got divorced. We went through a lot of healing,
Yeah, but you didn't feel safe. You didn't feel safe as a kid, though.
Yeah.
During that time, during that window.
Yeah. And so just kind of through some of the events that I started attending, with authors and speakers, since I was headed into that direction, there were some people that really inspired me by being so vulnerable with the, deepest, darkest part of their lives, that it really gave me the courage to go ahead and put it out there thinking, not so that it would shine a light on me, but really so that it would allow people to heal, and the way that I healed and the way that God healed me could help others. So I was like, okay, if it's for the sake of helping others, I will go ahead and put all the difficult things that I went through in my life in the book so that it can be an inspiration. And then thinking back to identity, my identity after 28 years had gotten so wrapped up in my work that, if people asked me who I was, I mean, the pitch of the company would come out. And so God really started unwinding and dissolving all of those things to really put me back together as my identity in Him. and really just teach me, about who he had created me to be, and that separation between, again, what you do versus who you are, and
Yeah.
understanding that who you are is what you do is just one little aspect of who you
Right.
are.
Absolutely. And so you've got really a lifetime worth of vulnerabilities and stories to share that really align with leadership, but also faith.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're appealing to multiple communities, and
Yes.
the community is at large. I'm going to call it the leadership community.
Yes.
On both sides is so much more open than they were 20 years ago to hear this. You would get blocked out 20 years
Mhm.
if you talked about God and spirituality, and it isn't really the same anymore. It's
I know. It's so exciting.
yeah,
I just see these little bits of revival popping up
yeah,
all over the place.
yeah.
I've gotten involved in prayer breakfast where it is called the Better Things Breakfast. And one thing that was so amazing is they've really talked about, blending marketplace and church, because, as a whole person that's a Christian, that colors every part of your life. So you can't really compartmentalize it. And
No,
even though you don't approach it in a way that you're forcing it down anybody's throat, you're not trying to abuse that,
right.
as you live your life and spread that light of what's inside of you, it just naturally, shows who God is and how much God loves us. And he loves us in every aspect of our life, not just one.
Absolutely, absolutely. And people know, they can sense it. When I was a principal, I went from a private Christian school
Okay.
into the public school. And,
Wow.
um, you know,
It was
teachers
different.
come in my office and shut the door and
Yeah.
say, would you pray for me? Or we just, and they know, and they desire it, and it helps them to be braver and,
Yeah.
more vulnerable. So
Yes.
you're doing God's work, girl.
That's what I'm trying to do. Represent him well, hopefully.
Absolutely.
I think what your book is saying, since I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet, is that the healing process can be really challenging, but when you get on the other end and look back, you can see how God was walking through you with all these things in your life that at the time you may not have sensed or realized.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There, that image of him carrying you, and growing up. So, I had a strong faith from, my grandparents and my mom, and through everything. My grandparents, so my grandmother taught Sunday school. My granddad, even though he was a dentist, he was a deacon, and they would go on mission trips and all that. So have that kind of deep faith that got us through so much. And you just realize that even if you're a prayer warrior, sometimes God will carry you with your armor on, because you just need his strength. You can't go in your own strength. There's things that he will call you to, and bold visions he will give you that only he can fulfill through you. And so you really have to learn to surrender. And sometimes that's the hardest thing. I laugh because, through all the difficulties, you tend to not want to let go of the steering wheel. And then when you do, I kind of have this image of a driver's ed class where the person has one hand on the steering wheel. I'm like, okay, God, I'm giving you the steering wheel, but I'm going to keep one hand on here. And then you get to the point where you're like, okay, I totally release it. I surrender it all. You're in control.
Yeah, surrender is not the easiest way, but it's the way.
So,
Our Bible study, Sandy and I are in the same book study, and we just got done with Max Licado's book on the Holy Spirit, and one of his great. He does great word pictures, but he said, you're in a canoe and you're paddling and paddling, paddling, and the Holy Spirit's saying, Sue, let go of the oars.
Yes.
And I tell myself that when I try to get in the way.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And oftentimes our timing is not God's timing, because we can pray for something for a long time and we don't see fruits to our labor of prayer. And then all of a sudden something will come to fruition and you think, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
you know, it becomes real. And
Yeah.
you think, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry I wasn't as patient as I needed to be.
Yeah.
Got it
Yes.
all figured out. And yeah.
Well, and one thing that I think I commented on it today on LinkedIn about whenever God brings me through something,
Mhm.
it seems like he brings a person in my life who really needs to hear that story, or who needs to be
So
lifted,
true.
and so I always see that pretty quickly, so it helps um, heal the wound and know that all of our lives are a ministry.
Right.
Yeah, they really are. He lives out through us in a way that gives an example of what he can do. And I think one of the hardest things, kind of thinking about what you said, is so many times, especially over the last few years, that he said, I keep your tears in a bottle. None of your tears are wasted. They're a way to water others.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, our stories are what help builds community, right? I mean,
Mhm.
that the shared stories are the things that help us connect in a deeper way.
Yes.
So I think it's important to have safe places where you can be able to be transparent so that you can have that connection and you can have that support because that's how you can be there for each other.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
want
absolutely.
to tell our audience that we must be playing musical chairs today because we just flipped places again. So
That makes it the most fun, though. Be real and now all the people that have technical difficulties can relate.
well, we don't even know what happens. It just kind of happens in front of us. And if we can figure it out later, we're lucky. But other
Yes.
than that, it's very, very interesting. So tell me a little bit about your podcast I know we just watched the trailer. Um,
Good.
when are you jumping ahead with the episode starting?
Yeah, I had originally planned to start in January, which we're in the middle of January.
Right.
So it's probably more like February because with the holidays and trying to do the soft book launch, I think I was being a little overly ambitious on my timeline. But yeah, I have two podcasts. So one is Refill Your Cup, which
Mm,
is just a 15-minute, going to be once a week. And basically just encouraging, especially people who tend to overgive or just give and give and give, and they forget to receive, that you need to fill your own cup because you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
And it really started before I left my corporate job because we had been through so much. I could just see across the company that everybody just felt kind of depleted, and even across society. I mean, we had just all been through so
Right.
much. Everybody needed to be filled back up.
mhm.
And so that's really where it started as I was doing a 15-minute. It wasn't Christian based. It was just, general, but it was refill your cup. And it was all the different things that you can do to pour positivity back into yourself. And it originally was going to be 6 months, but people wanted it to continue. So I could tell that there was a need out there for it. And after leaving my corporate job, I wanted to continue that. But then with Uncocooned, it made sense to have
Sure.
a podcast around that as well. So that'll probably be an hour each month and talk about the different, hard things that you go through, how to understand your identity, and all the things that you can go through with transformation and just releasing to God. It wasn't originally what I had planned to do, but through a series of things that God brought me through, he made it pretty clear that he was wanting to build more around the book than just the book itself.
Sure.
My original plan was I was going to, write the book, do some paid speaking engagements, and then just kind of call it good. And he's been expanding that. So podcast, the
Right.
things.
That's very organic with what you're doing. I love the story that you spoke about in your trailer. As a third grade teacher, we did a yearly series on monarch butterflies. And it's so true that if you interfere with those little butterflies when they're trying to break out of the cocoon, you're disabling them. You know, and I know in my trainings, I used to always say, so you take your little baby and your baby's born and you carry him around for 2 years. Guess what? It's not going to be able to walk.
Yes.
He hasn't fallen down, stood up. So, you know, the muscles
Yeah.
are there. And it's such a
Yeah.
great picture. And I love that story in there.
Oh, thank
I
you.
love the name of your book. It's just fascinating.
Well, and one of the things about being a cocoon and being in the goo, like you talk about, is that we can't see around the corner. And my
Mhm.
brother and I were just talking about that. I just sent him a birthday gift of 12 days of brandy, just talking about kid memories, you know, our child memories. He'd fill in the gaps, and we kind of went back and forth, and it was just a cool experience. But it's one of those things where when you're in that goo, you're glad you don't know what's around the corner, because would you have the ability to be able to, you'd be worried about it, and
Yes.
it would take away the faith, day to day walking in faith, and we'd be stressed all the time. And we both said we're glad we don't, that God doesn't let us know
Yeah.
what's going to be happening around the corner, because we'd say, are you kidding me? That's what we're going to have to deal with, you know.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But if we take it
Yeah.
day by day, and in that goo that you're talking about life happening, uh, it's a different thing than trying to anticipate and being worried and stewing about it.
Well, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, as you talk about being we absorb the goo. It's like
Mhm.
almost like our nourishment to prepare us to the next stage.
Right.
I never thought about that before, but I mean, it really, it's all the vitamins we need,
It's
even
so
though we didn't
true.
ever tell we say that we needed them. Yeah.
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 I love another example that's similar of being the seed that is, in the dark underground is when the roots form, and all of that root formation happens before it sprouts out of the earth. So there's
Absolutely.
that time where you just think, is anything happening? Am I going to get
Yeah.
there? And
The seedling won't pop up unless it's in the dark.
mhm.
It's just, I remember telling a client that last week because she was feeling very much in the dark. And I said,
Yeah.
well, you got to be in the dirt.
Mhm.
Dig around in the dirt and get under. And,
Yeah.
the great, great analogies. So, what would you say to somebody who is on the edge of burnout? They're still in that corporate job.
Yeah,
What
definitely.
would you say to them?
I think in a lot of ways it comes back to that refill your cup, but then especially for women, that over functioning, you really have to do a lot of inner work to get yourself to a place where you need to be. So one of the things that I went through is really just kind of hitting what people would call the glass ceiling, but realizing that really it wasn't a glass ceiling, it was my own lid that I had kept very low because it felt selfish to invest in myself. And so I was just giving, giving, giving. And when you do that, you're not getting that nourishment back, then that obviously is a recipe for burnout.
Mhm.
And then just realizing I started going back to a living well functional medicine center. I had gone there years before when I was dealing with my fertility journey and kind of like just at a roadblock there. And so I decided to go back because after, this major surgery, was a hysterectomy, I thought, it's probably a good time to reevaluate, all the internal things going on with hormones and different things with my energy level and food allergies. I have crazy food allergies and all sorts of things. But they had a coaching program that went along with all the testing and recommendations that they went. And one of the things that she said to me is after 50 hours, you're not really being productive. And so it started really sinking in that, it's so easy to get in the mode of just being busy, 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 and not realizing that if you don't take time to rest and recharge, you aren't, going at full capacity. And also realizing that if you don't invest in yourself, you're not bringing your best self to others. And so you're not really giving them the best of yourself.
Yeah.
And so reframing a lot of that really started bringing that balance back to my life where I was realizing that I needed to be a whole person. And
Sure.
I needed to make sure that I knew my worth was in Christ and I wasn't in that approval, people pleasing, being so dependent on feeling like accomplishments would fill me up. And it's amazing how doing that really raised me to a better place in leadership because
Yeah.
I had been limiting myself by not investing in myself. And I was setting, an example of being a workaholic instead setting example of like growing in leadership and learning and being productive and really being creative and balanced and having good relationships. And so as I reframed that, I realized that, kind of like filling your own cup, investing in yourself actually invests in those around you because it teaches them that they can learn and grow and that it's okay to have that balance of receiving. And
you can be a role model rather than just there goes another one, oops, there goes another.
Bottle rockets. It's like, okay.
And the hard part, I think the hardest part, well, not the hardest part, but one of the hardest parts of breaking away is that you're going against the culture.
Yes.
Right.
It's not the culture to go out and, especially, like you say, especially for women, but not just women.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Men as well, because men can get their identity very wrapped up in work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There actually was a study done down at Loma Linda University in Southern California where they were testing people that were taking, the students that were taking a Sabbath, how they did their grades, and they actually had a higher scores, even though they were taking that one day off. Again, because it filled, like you said, your cup. And I was raised as a Sabbatarian, taking Sabbath off from Friday to Saturday.
Yes.
That's not a new thing to me, and I have such an appreciation for it as an adult now.
Yeah.
Because I think it's made a big difference in my life. And yeah, just shutting it off.
And all the neuroscience proves the same thing, that rest from the stuff is healthy makes us more creative and more open to our ideas and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So anything else that we haven't asked you yet that you want to share with us?
So many things. It makes it hard to think of just one thing. I guess I would just, encourage people to just lean into God and, thinking about the Sabbath, it's amazing how science catches up to the Bible. So, if you really think about the ways that God designed us to work, he's given us an owner's manual, basically, and we're so like, no, I'll do it my own way, instead of putting gasoline in the engine, I'll put bananas, and you're like, why is the car not going anywhere?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's so good. Well, number one, I want to invite you to come back anytime.
Oh, I would love it.
Promoting something, whether you have something to say, whether just because we'd love to have you back. And we kind of close with a little, I don't know if you call it a debrief, but what's one takeaway from our conversation today that you're taking away?
Oh, definitely just the encouragement of, teaching and pouring into the next generation. And, it's just amazing, as we work together. I love the fact that, with you guys doing the podcast and me kind of starting out, how you can just give to others and really use what you've been through to help.
That's a great platform. Sandy, what's your takeaway?
I think it's very interesting that, Shelly is talking about the Sabbath. Charlie Kirk talked about the Sabbath, taking, stop in the name of God. And it's just interesting how our society is getting to a point where they're realizing we need to be stopping and we need to be giving our bodies rest. Whether or not you are a Christian, taking that break is very, very important because you will be better if you do. Your life will be better if you do that.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I'm just taking away such a wonderful spirit between the three of us ladies.
Yeah.
God's brought us together for many purposes. And I'm just very grateful that you came on, and I'm excited to invite you on again. And if we can do anything to help you promote your podcast or whatever, we're here for you, even if it's to learn how to which button to push.
I appreciate it so much. It's just been such a pleasure getting to spend more time with both of you, and so appreciative for what you do. And I feel the same way. If there's anything I can do to help you guys as well,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
amazing.
we'll promote you and bring you on as much as if there's something you want to say, let us know, because we're, we've had 92 episodes, and we feel like everybody who's been on is part of our community.
Right.
The community is so important.
All over the place, and all over the world. Actually, I'm interviewing a guy. I think we're interviewing him in 2 weeks in February, and he's from India.
Oh, that's fabulous. It's amazing how technology can bring us, from around the world to where you're just like you're there next door.
Right.
It's
It's been a journey for me to recruit on LinkedIn. That's basically where I recruit. And it's funny because the energy, just kind of inviting people, I just am led to invite people, and most people say yes. So you'll find that as well, I'm sure. So, yes. Okay. Well, hang on, Shelly, just for a minute. I'm going to shut down our recording, and thank you all for being with us today. And we'll see you soon.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.